you're building your mindset, you really have to simply decide that it's possible. And the reason that you have to decide that, the reason that I highly encourage you to believe, to decide to believe that you live in a friendly universe, is that's going to give you the energy to move forward because you believe that your efforts are going to be rewarded. It's often what I refer to as the only belief that matters, that your energies are going to be rewarded.
I was always interested in why some people wilted in the face of failure, shied away from challenges, when people who were no more talented or able were embracing challenges and thriving in the face of failure. Ultimately, this led to our discovery of the mindsets. And what we found was that some people believe their talents and abilities are just these fixed traits. You have a certain amount and that's it. But other people believe talents and abilities can be developed through hard work, good strategies, good mentoring from others. Through years of work, we found that having a fixed mindset led you to be afraid of challenges that might unmask your deficiencies, made you withdraw in the face of difficulty because you felt stupid. You didn't want to feel stupid. You want other people to think you were stupid. Whereas having this growth mindset, the idea that your abilities could be developed, made you think, why waste my time looking smart when I can be getting smarter? And I do that through taking on challenges. I do that through seeing them through. Now, growth mindset doesn't mean everyone's the same, that they don't differ in talent and abilities. It just means everyone can grow. We're all a mixture. It's true that you can have a fixed mindset in one area and a growth mindset in another area. But and it's true that it's a spectrum, not a dichotomy, but it's really dynamic, even in a given area. Sometimes you're in a fixed mindset. You think, my abilities are fixed, I have to prove them, I have to look smart, I can't show that I'm working too hard, people might not think I'm so smart. And other times, we could be more in a growth mindset. So what we have to start doing is looking for what triggers because the fixed mindset holds us back, we have to start looking for what triggers it in all of us, even me. What happens when you're facing a big challenge? Do you worry about, I'm going to unmask deficiencies? What happens when there's a setback? Do you think, maybe I'm not good at this? What happens when you're receiving criticism? Do you get angry and defensive? What happens when you see someone who's better at you in what you're good at? Do you feel jealous and resentful, or do you feel inspired? Maybe I can learn from that person. Maybe they can mentor me. So watch out at these trigger moments. See how you're feeling, and see if you can get yourself into more of a growth mindset.
Now, I want to remind you of the quote that we talked about in the first class, which is from Einstein, and it's all about the most important decision you're ever going to make. And that decision is whether we live in a friendly or a hostile universe. And the reason that I harp on this quote is, one, it seems like something that is either just true or not. And I want you guys to understand, at the most foundational building block level is a decision. And all of this is a decision. And deciding whether something is objectively true or subjectively true is pretty irrelevant. When you're building your mindset, you really have to simply decide that it's possible. And the reason that you have to decide that, the reason that I highly encourage you to believe, to decide to believe that you live in a friendly universe, is that's going to give you the energy to move forward because you believe that your efforts are going to be rewarded. It's often what I refer to as the only belief that matters, that your energies are going to be rewarded. I'm not saying we're blank slates. I talked about that in the first part. We're all different. We all learn at different speeds. We all have advantages in one area or another, and it can be very, very frustrating when something that's important to us also happens to align in an area where we suck. But I want you to understand, even though you may never be Einstein, even though you may never be Jordan or Kobe or whoever it is that you look up to, you can always get better.
All of you have targets, things that you're after. If you're going to get a new result, if you're going to grow your business, if you're going to be able to support your mom, if you're going to get rid of the anxiety, if you're going to be able to overachieve and not have all that fear inside of you, you obviously need to get a new result. You're going to have to get new action. We all know that. You don't get new results with old actions doing the same thing.
Exactly.
What human beings can do, this is a human being, believe it or not, I majored in art. What human beings can do is amazing. What they will do is usually disappointing. It's not because we're not capable of it. It's because we don't have new actions because we get in certain emotional states that dominate us, like anxiety, like fear of failure, right? Like the fear of the loss of your mother as an example. So if you're in a state of fear, you're going to behave very differently and get very different results. That's what that means right there. Then if you were in a place of being courageous or bold or warm or connected or playful, any of those. So the most important key to changing your life in any situation is to change results, you got to change behavior. But to change behavior, you got to change the emotional state you're in.
People often who have negative recurring thoughts and feelings in their life, the reason those keep coming up all the time is because they at some point in their life or continually are giving those thoughts, the negative ones, more attention than necessarily any other thoughts. In other words, the relative weight that they give those thoughts is quite high. And they give a lot of importance to them. So those thoughts are very important to me right now. And they're durational, they last over a period of time. They keep thinking about those thoughts, thinking about those thoughts, thinking about those thoughts. And it's all that repetition that seals it in the back of their head. And now their head says, oh, this is an easy thing. I know this one, and it pulls it forward. So that simple repetition, because they made it important and they thought about it a lot, it keeps coming up for them over and over and over again. So there's a good negative thing about that and a positive thing. The negative is if you keep obsessing about negative things, your mind will be automatically conditioned to bring it up more and more and more often without your control, just automatically. The positive aspect is we can use that same skill set and that same rule to apply positive thoughts into our own life. We can give positive thinking, positive questions, positive approaches to life, a lot of importance in our life and a lot of focus, and focus on them and give a lot of duration to them over a period of time, and they get sealed in the brain as well. And now the brain says, well, that's easy, automatically thinks about it.
The reason I say the thing that if there's anybody that ever looked like you that made it, then there's no excuse, is because I believe it. You know, it's really hard. You're in an argument and your friend tells you, that's great, Gary, but both my parents were alcoholics. And that really f***ed me up. Right now you're on the defense. That's a good first punch by them. I'm like, cool, we don't need to use me. If anybody has ever been successful that had 2 alcoholic parents, which, by the way, I know of 3, well then, now what's your excuse, Karen? We are just so interested in blaming everybody else and excuses because we don't want to take on responsibility.
You walk into the supermarket with $20, come out with a little half bag. So I had that on my list. I used to blame the weather. I blamed the traffic. I used to blame my car. I blamed the manufacturers. I used to blame the company. I blamed company policy. I used to blame the training program. I blame my negative relatives. They were always putting me down. I blame my cynical neighbors. They're just selfish, looking out for themselves. Won't loan you money? They were on my list. I used to blame the economy. I blamed the community. That's a pretty good list for not doing well, isn't it? I thought it was good. I'll never forget one day, Mr. Schoaf was very kind, but he was also very blunt, and this was no exception. And I'm glad he was blunt. There's a lot of things I'd have missed if he hadn't have been blunt. One day, with sort of a curious look on his face, he said, Jim, just out of curiosity, tell me, how come you haven't done well up until now? Excellent question. I thought, well, so I won't look too bad, I'll go through my list. And this list I just gave you, I put that on him. And he was very patient. He let me go through the whole thing, the government, the weather. I went through this whole thing. When I finished, he looked my list over very carefully. He said, Mr. Rohn, big problem with your list. You ain't on it. How brilliant. When I went to work for him a few months later, I learned very quickly to tear up my list, reasons for not doing well, and I threw it away. And I got me a fresh piece of paper. And I put one word on it. Me. There's a black heritage spiritual that says it's not my mother nor my father, nor my brother nor my sister, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. See, I used to blame everything outside. And then let me give you a little philosophy that helped turn my life around. For your notes, here it is. It's not what happens that determines the quality or the quantity of your life. It's not what happens. And the reason is because what happens to about everybody. No different. The sun went down on all of us last night. A common event, a happening. And I found out that the same things can happen to two different people. One gets rich and one stays poor. Why is that? It's because it's not what happens, but rather it's what you do that changes everything.
Often when we set about to change something or to achieve something, the first step is almost always setting a goal. And this is coming from someone like I was very goal-oriented for a long time, right? Like I would set goals for the things I wanted to do in sports, the goals for the grades I wanted in class, the goals for how much money I wanted to make in my business. And sometimes I would achieve those, but then sometimes I wouldn't. And so I had this question like, well, clearly I'm setting goals for both, so like that can't be the thing that determines it. And you see this a lot, that the winners and losers in a particular domain often have the same goals. Like every Olympian wants to win a gold medal.
Sure.
Every job candidate wants to get the job. So if the winners and the losers have the same goal, then the goal cannot be the thing that distinguishes the two. And the thing that distinguishes them is the process, the system behind the goal. And this is also important because achieving a goal often only changes your life for the moment. It's like, say you're, just take like a simple example. Say you have a messy room, and you get motivated and you set the goal to clean your room. Well, you can do that in an hour and then you have a clean room. But if you don't change the sloppy habits that led to a messy room in the first place, then you just end up with a dirty room again.
Yeah.
So it's like treating a symptom without treating the cause. And habits are a better solution in that case, because if you fix the inputs, the outputs fix themselves automatically, right? You don't have to fight to have a clean room if you have clean habits. And I think that that's true in a larger sense as well, right?
Yeah.
People want outcomes. They want to earn more money or lose weight or be more productive or reduce stress. But the outcome is not the thing that needs to change. It's the system that precedes it.
I'll talk to you about setting the right goals. A lot of people set the wrong goals. Why do we set goals? Well, most people say you set goals so you can earn more money, you can get ahead in life. That's not how you set goals at all. You set goals so you can grow. You see, you will not move ahead if you don't have a good reason to move ahead. That's the purpose of a goal. A goal is something you put out here that you really want to go after. You've got to really want it, and if you don't really want it, you won't go after it. You see, if you're going to grow, you're going to have to change habit patterns. You're going to have to shift paradigms. It's not an easy thing to do. I point out you're going to hit terror barriers. You're going to come up against things that just scare the daylights out of you if you're going to grow. If you're really going to grow into everything God meant you to be. You're God's highest form of creation. No one knows what you and I are capable of doing. Why would we ever think of staying where we are? We want to do better. We want to make it bigger. We want to run faster, jump higher. And we can if we have a goal. You see, the goal you set, you should know how to get there. If you know how to get there, it's the wrong goal. If you know how to get there, you've already been there, or at least you know how to do it. We called ABC goals. A goal is doing what you already know how to do. B goal, doing what you think you can do. If I put this together, if I had this and that, and I got it all together, then this would happen. You know you can do it. The C goal, that's where you're creating. You have no idea how you're going to get there. But because you can see it in your mind, you know you can hold it in your hand. Make certain that you set the right goal. And I guarantee you, you'll never have to worry about getting up in the morning. You won't have to worry about having a good day. You're going to be working toward your goal.
Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most helpful concepts of time and life management. It's called the 80-20 rule. Now, the 80-20 rule is also called the Pareto principle, named after its founder, the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, in 1895. He noticed that people in society seemed to divide naturally into what he called the vital few, or the top 20%, in terms of money, property, and influence, and the trivial many, or the bottom 80%. Later, he discovered that virtually all economic activity was subject to this same principle, in that 80% of the wealth of Italy during that time was controlled by 20% of the population. We can take Pareto's 80-20 rule and apply it to almost any situation. In particular, we can apply it to goal setting and productivity. According to this principle, 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. That means if you have a list of 10 items to accomplish, 2 of those items will turn out to be worth more than the other 8 items put together. The sad fact is that most people procrastinate on the top 10 or 20% of items that are the most valuable and important, the vital few that account for all your success, and instead they busy themselves with the least important 80%, the trivial many that contribute very little or nothing to their success.
Readers are readers. We've been saying it for decades. Reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body. And I think one of the best exercises you could do to be mentally fit is to read more. The challenge is most people don't. Most people read 1, 2, 3 books a year if they're lucky. But we know leaders like CEOs, people who are high performers, they love reading books that take decades of experience to be able to write, because you could sit down in a few days, you could download decades into days. I'm here to say is that you are important, that one of the ways you show love to yourself, self-love, is through self-care and doing the things that you would want the people you care about to do. And reading should be right up on top because it keeps you mentally alert. If you want a clear brain fog, if you want greater focus, if you want more empathy and emotional intelligence, reading should be top of your list. So what I want you to do is this. I want you to pick a book. A book, you don't even have to go and buy it, because I know you have something sitting on the shelf and it's becoming shelf help and not self-help, right? I want you to pick a book that you're committed to reading every single day till you finish it. Now, stipulation is if you don't like the book, going through it after X amount of chapters, then the fastest way to read something is not to read it at all. But find a book that you've always wanted to read, and what I want you to do is this week, schedule your 15 minutes a day. And what I want you to do is commit, little commitments, because at a high level, at a meta level, what you're doing is you're becoming, again, a master at creating your own habits. We're creating positive momentum, little by little, a little becomes a lot. Consistency, remember, compounds, and that's the purpose of doing this challenge.
People don't always like you, and they're not always happy for you. And if you surround yourself with people who are not accustomed to your success, they become fearful, they become scared, because you are reflecting back something to them that they don't recognize. Now, they're not going to say, you know, I'm very fearful, because you're reflecting back to me something I don't recognize. They're going to say, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, who she thinks she is. Who she thinks she is. That only happens when you are around people who do not mean and want and aspire to the best for you. People who want the best for you want you to be your best. So my greatest advice to you is to surround yourself with people who are going to fill your cup until your cup runneth over.
There is a race on today, and you are in it, whether you know it or not. If you've not yet developed the habit of reading each day, attending seminars and courses regularly, and listening to audio programs in your car as you move around, somewhere someone else is doing this. And inevitably that person will win the race and you will lose. The good news is that an average person who develops the habit of lifelong learning will eventually run circles around a genius who goes home and watches television each night. There's perhaps no habit that will more guarantee your success in life than the habit of continuous personal and professional improvement. The payoff in improved results in your field will be tremendous. But the best payoff of all is that you will become more optimistic and positive. You'll have more energy, you'll be more creative, you'll be a happier person as you continue to grow and grow toward the realization of your full potential. The habit of continuous learning enables average people to become top performers in their fields. It enables people to go from rags to riches. It enables people to rise from poverty and frustration to affluence and success. Continuous learning opens every door for you. It increases your intelligence and creativity and puts you onto the fast track in your career.
Well, I'll give you two pieces of advice. I'd invest as much in myself as you can. I mean, you're your own biggest asset by far. I mean, you've got all kinds of potential. All the people in this room, you're lucky to be in this country, gotten a good education, but most people go through life using up a very, very small part of their potential. And so anything you do that invests in yourself, that's the best investment you can possibly make. And then I would follow my passion. I mean, whatever turns you on. You know, I was lucky. I found something early that turned me on. But you don't want to take a job just for the money. You don't want to take a job for an organization that you really don't feel good about, or work for people that you don't feel good about. You really want to be excited when you get out of bed every morning. And it won't necessarily be the job that you have 10 years later, but you'll be learning so much as you go along. And you know, I took a job with Ben Graham, my hero, and it, you know, I never asked the salary, and I found at the end of the month when I got my first paycheck what I was earning, because I just knew it was the right thing to be doing.
How do I go about making it happen? You're going to watch biographies of other humans who've done it. You're going to start listening to audio books about it. You're going to continue to come to conferences like these. You're going to surround yourself with other people who've already done what you're trying to do. You're going to go over your notes in this particular one. You're going to listen to podcasts. You're going to take trips. You're going to get out of that environment that you're in right now and put yourself in an environment with other people who are winning. And you're going to do these things over and over and over again. You're going to spend 2 hours a day with you.